Hey, this is Russell, and I work at the video store, the place that we can all go to once a week whenever it is movie night. Interesting people pop in to rent something, and we go through the films that they've loved across their life. And then when the store is quiet, I get to chat with my friends about what we're watching on streaming platforms and out in cinemas. We're here to help you figure out what you can watch. All right, let's do it. Let's open up the shop.
Did you see that thing yesterday on the TV? It was really interesting.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey, Risky.
Morning, Russell.
How are you, G-Force?
Right on yourself, dude.
G-Force 5.
Hey, Graeme.
What's up, dude?
We've got Graeme here, and we've got Gad. How are you, Gad?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hey, are you solid?
Solid.
You had to take your kid to school this morning.
Well, my fiance's kid.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Congratulations, Gad.
Yeah.
Thank you, dude.
We're very proud
Thanks,
of you.
guys.
When I got to Millie Pop Festival, there was lots of celebration in the air because Gad had been proposed to.
It's leap year, baby.
It's leap year, baby. So the lovely Jess asked Gad to be her husband.
Amazing.
And I did say yes.
Good. It was so funny. I was like, tell me everything. She asked you during the makeovers set.
The makeovers, yeah. So they're a Pretoria noise rock band. They're amazing.
One of your favorites.
Yeah, probably my favorite South African band.
So she knew that.
She did, yeah.
Okay, so that was all planned.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lovely. So there's going to be 2 weddings this year.
Wow.
Hey?
Yeah, you getting married in November.
Yeah, and then you guys are hopefully going to set a date.
Looking at December, but yeah, still up in there.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Look at us all grown up.
Yeah.
Gad's like the least grown up out of all of us. But he's the one that currently has to sort of take on dad duties.
Right.
And by all of us, I'm really just sort of meaning the band. That's always been the measure. Because Jake, the drummer, is the youngest.
Yeah.
But in his mentality and approach to life, he is by far the oldest.
Oh, right.
And the most mature. And then we've got Gad, who was just born the first.
Just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence that he was born before anyone else in the band, but has certainly had the youngest sensibility in life. But yeah, here you are being a stepdad, or stepgad as we call it.
Yeah, so that's why most of my viewing now is very PG.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But listen, I want to get into it because today is an exciting day.
Yeah.
We're going to have Cito come in and rent something.
I've loved this dude for a long time. I got WONDERBoom to play at my Bell of the Bands when I was in grade 11.
So so Cito is the lead singer of the band WONDERBoom, who have been a important big band in South Africa for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And he's just always been a particularly like cool dude. Like there's a sort of essence to him, Cito specifically, that I've always just admired and think is so cool. So so you got him to play your Battle of the Bands. It must have been a huge scoop at the time.
I think so. I mean, at King David where I was, WONDERBoom wasn't exactly like a known brand. I'd been to Woodstock back then, and I saw them, and I was just like, they were amazing. And then my parents went to take me and my brother to Tempos and Kaya Sands to go watch them.
Okay.
So yeah, I was a bit of a fanboy. So
Okay.
it was a dream come true for me at the time.
Oh, lovely, man.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's been always a treat to get to know these people once you become an adult and you join the sort of working world.
Yes.
And you also play shows together. And WONDERBoom have done some shows at the Bioscope. Even Cito's other band, Blvd Hvnny, have done like music video launches at us. And there was a listening session that they did for the new album.
I heard that was great.
Yeah, so the new album is coming out now this Friday, the week of this episode's release. It's called Hard Mode, and it sounds amazing. It sounds like it's going to be a real treat.
Awesome.
And he makes great coffee as well.
He makes great coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's got his own coffee company. But I think, on this note, we should just get straight into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you agree? All right. And then for all of those who are joining for the first time, please stick around for After the Chat with Cito, where myself, Gad, and Graeme are going to have a fat chat about what we're watching. There's some really cool TV shows I know that I'm watching. Graeme's watching a great one. We'll see what Gad is up to, and we'll have a good chat about that. So please stick around for that part. But without further hesitation, this is Cito popping in to rent something. How's it?
Hey, wow. That's cool. So you've got a video store too. Okay.
Yeah, welcome to it.
Wow, cool, man. Jeez.
It's good to have you.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. It's like, it kind of brings back memories to when I worked in a video store.
Ooh, tell me, where was that?
I worked in a video store in a place in Malanshof called the Video Spot.
Okay.
It was.
Where's Malanshof?
It's kind of between Malibongwe and Robbie Road.
Okay.
On Hill, I don't know what it's called there. I think it's Hill there already.
Yeah.
It was that shopping center, like a
Greater Randburg.
Greater Randburg, yeah,
What?
just before the licensing department, or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Downstairs.
It's a very functional part of Joburg.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
It's not the sexiest.
It's not the coolest place to live, but
Yeah.
a lot of us came from that area
Yeah.
or lived in that area. So
I've always likened if Joburg was a person's body.
yeah,
Which part is the is the fake boobs, and which part is the brain, and which is the heart, and like an area like Randburg, I've long since said, is a little bit like the scrotum of Joburg. It's not the prettiest, but it's very
necessary.
functional. It's
Yeah,
very necessary. It's like the
yeah.
colon.
yeah.
You get your business cards printed. You can buy the foam board.
Yeah,
You can
licensing
buy
department.
The licensing.
Yeah,
I spent a bit of time there. Waiting. When you give yourself a whole day to go to Home Affairs. It's such a sad, horrible
Home
place.
Affairs is around the corner. Yeah.
What era were we at the video store?
Sorry, what?
What era? Like what time?
Era.
What time in your
that
life?
Uh,
that was pre WONDERBoom, so like 94,
Okay.
94, 95-ish, somewhere around there.
All right, an exciting time for South Africa.
Yeah, man. Very exciting time for South Africa.
I want to get into it, and I want to. We're going to go at some point. We're going to start talking about your life, and we're going to go across your life. So we'll perhaps get to the video store era, because I'd imagine that when you were there, you watched some good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you had access to it, right?
Yeah.
It was almost like having your own Netflix account when others didn't, right?
Totally. When the customers didn't interrupt my viewing.
Yeah, I know other folks that would say, sorry, it's been booked out. We don't have it. Meanwhile, it's like it's under the counter for you because you're going to take it home that night. But we had you here at the Bioscope recently to have a listening session for the new WONDERBoom album.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah.
And in the week of this episode's release, it is going to be out on the Friday.
Yes.
So what date is that?
22nd of March.
22nd of March.
Yeah.
And what number album is this now?
This is album number 10.
Okay. Wild.
Yeah, no, it's
lovely.
wild. It's great, man. It's always great to have new music out.
How does this one feel to you? How does it fit in your head?
I'm a lot more relaxed about it. Like I'm just like letting it go. Where previous albums, so much like we put so much pressure on ourselves about it being the one, and getting it
I know
out.
that feeling.
So I'm not putting any pressure on it. I have a gut feeling that it's going to do pretty well with regards to people digging it. We've released a few singles already off it, so I think to have it in its sort of culmination with the newer songs and kind of finalizing our chapter with Just Music and Matthew Fink as producer.
Finalizing.
Well, not finalizing, but like completing, because we had to
Okay.
deliver like an album with them. That was our mission, is to do an album with them.
Okay.
And it's been a long journey, like with COVID and everything else. All these
so there was a
interruptions.
contract in place to do an album with Just.
Yeah, it's not the only reason we like putting out albums, but it was like our agreement was, to
You got to deliver this thing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
And there's no pressure from our side that we have to do it. It was more for ourselves. Like
Yeah.
I know that that everything's changed now. People are consuming singles, and albums are like, why even bother and all that kind of a thing. But for us, I think it like pretty much psychologically it's pretty cool because it just gives us that sense of completion and capturing a certain era for us. So Martin and I do all the songwriting, the initial process, and we spend a lot of time together. I've been writing songs with him since the mid-90s, and for us it's just closure in many ways. It's just like putting this all into a movie almost. I almost see albums as movies, because they have, our songs we've got a real, I don't know if it's a problem or if it's just a thing, like no song on an album sounds like the other, like very eclectic. Every album, we've always been like that, very diverse, and I think that's just the way we are.
It's a strength, and it's part of it's part of your charm, I guess. Which is a good thing, because funny enough, today, for example, I was listening to the latest Blink-182 album, and because it came up in a conversation last night, and between Pretoria and Joburg, I was listening to this thing, and I was like, it's great. Every song kind of sounds the same, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
like,
fans want that in many ways. For the most part,
I think that diversity is important.
Yeah.
But what is the what is this era that you kind of closing on?
Well, it's not closing. So it's basically
but I mean, what did this album encapsulate? Like, what was that? What does this chapter feel like?
It feels like. It feels like we're reflecting on a lot of shit.
Cool.
Like internally and also externally.
Because I think people don't know that often albums, and especially your songwriting, can be a very important way of you rationalizing or making sense of your own life.
Yeah.
And you can work through some stuff. Totally. And musicians totally work through things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're being quite reflective at this point.
Yeah, and not all songs are as profound, or as deep, but certain songs that we released, one called Rabbit Hole, was very sort of introspective and the vulnerability. Like lockdown taught us a lot about ourselves and who we're with, who we have in our lives. And, like if you're married, you're with this person like 24/7 and you're not allowed to get out and, have each other made the right decision and that kind of a thing.
I'm sure there were lots of relationships which were like, this is either going to end with a baby or one of us buried in the back garden.
Totally.
Totally. So this is the lockdown feelings and the
It started
complexity
off from there.
Of that.
Yeah, it started off from there, and in many ways, like a lot of the songs. I mean, like the sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. We've got a song called "Hip," where it's just like heavy, tongue in cheek. We're like self-deprecating, trying to catch up with what's the right thing to do with social media jargon, trying to keep up with
Wild,
with,
hey?
Like with the times and everything else, and
we as Short Straw also had a Corona, like a Corona album.
Okay.
You know the babies that are born during the pandemic, they're called coronials.
Oh, really?
Or like there was a nickname to the babies made.
Makes sense.
So we've got these coronial albums, right?
Yeah.
Like you've just about to release yours. Ours came out about a year ago.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of hashed out and worked out during COVID. It's really there was a point I was going to make.
Tongue in cheek, keeping up with the times.
Yeah. So even with Short Straw, we came out of this whole, at the end of Corona, going like, how do you do this? How do you release an album now?
Yeah.
Like the platforms have sort of changed and shifted once again.
Big time.
The appetite, as you said, I think it was the Beatles were the band that brought that shift away from singles to albums, where they were such a big phenomenon. The record labels, just chime in if I'm wrong, but this is my kind of reading of it.
You're right.
Was that they were trying to commodify them as best as possible. Can we fit more songs on? The only reason why the average album is 12 tracks is because that's how much could fit on an LP.
Yeah.
So all these things got like figured out and done, and then that became a standard for so long.
Yeah,
and it's
decades.
so interesting that we're going back
To the
now
single
quicker
era,
than ever
yeah.
to the single era, which is what music always was. A band like in the early Beatles or like the Dolly Partons and the Elvises, they just put out a song.
Yep.
And it was a record, which was just one record.
Yeah, crazy.
And so it's interesting that we're going back to that. But I think you and I and many others are still nostalgic about these things being a package where it feels, as you said, like a movie.
Yeah.
Where you've got more to say. There's a theme.
Yeah.
So I think there's still a place for an album. But it's just interesting that the economy has changed.
Totally. And, and the way people are consuming music now, and do you actually release anything hard copy, or is it all just going to be digital? Or,
No, we were having that debate where Elle was like, the singer in Short Straw, for those who don't know, was like, we should still make CDs, right? He was just thinking like, we should, right? And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Do we?
Yeah.
Should we? What? And then vinyl is the lovely gold standard.
Yeah.
But it's fucking expensive.
It's
and it
very
takes,
expensive.
and it's got to be made in Europe. And then you got to talk about how you're going to ship this heavy stuff in a cargo.
And there's a backlog of.
Oh my God.
And then where they, and not everybody's got vinyl players. So it's really just, it's just like a very nice novelty, tangible thing.
And there are bands that, if you war on drugs or certain bands, it's like all your fans have players.
Yeah.
But with Short Straw, it's like the majority of our fans are like varsity kids.
Yeah.
Maybe their dad might have one.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we've made that mistake where when we released the vinyl, we were like, oh, okay, we're going to sit with the stock for a bit, which is fine. It's slowly selling as we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, you happy with it? I think Matthew Fink's a great producer.
He's fantastic,
What was
man.
that like?
So I've always wanted to work with Matthew. I've always been sort of keen to work with somebody like that. We've worked with some really cool producers in the past, but we've also been working as ourselves as producers as well.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
sometimes you can get a bit too close.
Yeah.
And
So
you need that perspective of someone going, let's take that out.
Yeah. No, totally. And the opposite of that, of having the wrong person producing your album, is
Pulling you in a direction
is
that you just would
actually-
never,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be in. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a lot has changed since we started 28 years ago, and throughout, I suppose, throughout this whole journey, I would say the past sort of 10 years or so, I've been like checking out Matthew and his work, and I've always admired him as an artist. And when I started checking out his production work, I didn't really know his studio work. And he's quite a genius behind the desk. He's quite a mad scientist in many ways. He knows his gear. He's got great gear.
But what I loved, and I remember hearing one story, I think it was Matthew Mole who recorded with him for some of his early stuff.
Yeah.
He said there was times when they were looking for a particular sound, and in the room they were banging cupboard doors, or they were, that's when you say mad scientist.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
He's not just sort of a button pusher that just goes, let's try that one more time.
Yeah, or
it's
let's
more
do this
just like,
plug-in,
what's this weird noise we can make?
So we had lots of moments like that on the recording of Hard Mode.
Okay, so let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
So the album's called Hard
Mode. Yeah.
Okay.
It comes from it's like an internal joke amongst ourselves. How we make things difficult for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like before we start rehearsal, if one of us decides to pull out a joint and then we all like toke on it and then like try and rehearse, like
now it's on Hard Mode.
It's like the worst thing to do. Like I don't smoke before I gig, and definitely not before rehearsals, because it's like a big spanner.
It's like having a hamburger before you gym. It's like it doesn't make sense.
Any sense.
Maybe you
exactly.
can do it afterwards because you've gymmed now.
Yeah.
But rehearsal is gym. It's a band gym.
Yeah,
You've
you're
got
working
to concentrate and
and
get your fingers right. And that's where we go. We go to that.
So I mean, and that's an extreme example, but just with everything else, just reflecting on like why are we doing this in hard mode? Why,
Well, I very much relate to that term because I've brought that up often with my small business, where I've got the bioscope and with load shedding and air cons and heat waves and just like the things that go wrong, and you're like, we're doing it on hard mode. It's like it's hard enough to just run an independent cinema. Like that comes with its own challenges.
I can
and
imagine.
then it's like, a substation blows and you're like, now I don't have power for the whole day, or like there was a water outage and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, what else?
So everyone listening, I hope you fucking registered to vote. Use your vote.
Yeah, please.
Just don't forget those days when you didn't have water or power, because all the road agencies are out now painting and doing all the fixing of the roads now.
Yeah,
they're reminding you that they exist.
Yeah, exactly.
But don't forget about the days that
they didn't,
pain.
and you had to
use your vote wisely.
Use your
folks.
votes.
Okay, so Hard Mode is going to come out this Friday. And did you enjoy your listening session at the Bioscope?
Oh, it was so cool, man.
Was it everything you needed it to be?
Yeah, it's just I just love this venue for so many reasons. The big one for us for the listening session itself is that it's geared the way all the seats are, like cinema vibe. And you have their attention. There's no like distraction with bars and people serving you, or people having conversations. It's like a proper listening session.
I remember going to the Kings of Leon listening session, and it was the opposite. It was what you're saying, where you're sitting at these tables and you start talking amongst yourselves. It's like the album just plays in the background. Where with the Bioscope, the seats face the one direction. It's quite important.
Yeah, and the sound treatment in here is great.
Yeah,
and it was just mostly our fans, like hardcore fans, that we really want to treat and just say, look, thanks for getting us here this far. This is our little treat to you guys.
So you invited them personally? So do you know those folks, or did you put it out?
So we put it out, just share your favorite sort of WONDERBoom stories so that we can see, how immersed you are, or what kind of stories we could share. And it's a great exercise, because some people really brought out some great memories that was just endearing. It was just heartwarming to see.
It's an important exercise, because in this crazy world, which we've touched on earlier, which is so much music is being released, so many bands and artists are out there, because it's obviously so much just easier to make and produce music these days, especially electronic music. You sort of wonder, how do I do this? I'm a drop in the ocean. Even if you're one of the biggest bands in the country that have, you're onto your 10th album, it's like, that doesn't, it's still a challenge where you're like, how the fuck do I do it now?
Absolutely.
How do I pitch to Spotify? How do I stand out amongst the 20,000 other songs being pitched to Spotify on the same day?
Yeah.
How is this possible? And the answer is your fans.
Yeah.
That you have a relationship with now, that you hold close.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. Yeah. And doing whatever you can to keep them close, like they're friends.
Yeah.
Because they will be the ones that will fight for you. They'll be the ones that will support you in a world where, it's as I said, it's hard to break out. It's hard for that bubble to expand exponentially anymore. Remember,
to be discovered.
Remember what it felt like to have that song on radio do well, where like thousands of other people who never could have been reached got reached. Now it doesn't exist that much. You've got to grow your bubble. So, show by show, word of mouth by word of mouth, slowly. My heart goes out to someone trying to start now. But if you have these, like, I think it was the artist Will Lindley, who's like the new kid on the block that's just doing so well.
Yeah.
He brought up an interview that he has like a Discord server, which is, like a chat group effectively. And he just constantly speaks about his fans as like his people. And he's just growing that little epicenter out.
Brilliant.
Which is the way to do it.
Yeah, totally.
But that takes a lot of time.
It
takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And you realize how incessant some of these people are on social media.
Yeah.
So you got to like really
nurture that and look after them. And because they come to your shows, because they listen to your music, because they have been supportive through your good times and your tough times, when you're flavor of the month and when you're not flavor of the month, so that was our mission with the listening session. It was quite cool. It was it's
a smart move.
And also, just for myself, just checking, because it's so sort of stop start and disjointed, the whole process of getting the album out and doing the sequencing of tracks and all of that, to sit here as a listener and just checking it out.
To feel that flow.
Yeah, just to feel that flow was a good exercise.
Which is also another potentially archaic exercise, because in the future there might not be a need for flow because there might not be albums.
Yeah,
it's a whole nother art, which is like, and bands debate that. Short Straws had long debates each time, which is which should go into the next, and it's quite a thing. But let's do this little journey, because I want to get to know you a bit better in this regard. So we've got the 4 great loves, which are the films that you've loved across your life, because we believe that these films have helped shape you in some way and kind of made you who you are today.
Yeah.
So the first film is your puppy love film, which is the first film that came to you, which is young child, perhaps primary school era, and what that film might have been. Where did you grow up?
I was born in California, but I was raised in New York City, in Queens.
Okay.
And
good. Interesting start.
Yeah, a very interesting start, I suppose.
What did the folks do?
So, they did.
What did they do?
So they're both ministers. So, like Christian, my father's Presbyterian minister, but he also worked for the airlines. So,
which airline?
He worked for different airlines. He ended up working for SAA, which is how he got out here as well.
As a pilot?
No, he worked his way up from sales up to like tours manager for SAA for the States.
Okay.
And then we moved to California when I was about 7 or 8 for like another year, and then we moved back to New York. We did a lot of moving. But
okay. What was the formative years, and where was the most of the formative years? New York or California?
New York, yeah.
Oh, that must have been interesting. Queens,
yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was,
what was that like? What
so,
years
yeah,
of this?
so
this
I
is
was
pre-Giuliani. So this is like
pre-Giuliani, Koch, and
so this is a bit of a rough New York, eh?
Yeah, it was a bit.
Somewhat.
I don't know, in somewhat. Like the areas, the area that I lived in Queens. There was like, obviously there was some tough guys around, but the community. What I do miss about my childhood is that we were always out in the streets, and we were always like out playing till dark, and we would visit each other's flats, and like there was no sense of real danger.
I think that's it. People speak about the old New York as being rough, and it's like, well,
obviously some areas definitely were,
but also like in context with Joburg, it's like maybe it was fine.
No, big time. Yeah, and especially if you're living there and you're just like everybody else,
And what ethnicity is Cito? I haven't thought of that as a name. What is that?
So Cito it's a nickname. It means, it's like you put it's Spanish. So my mother's Puerto Rican. So I'm half. I grew up speaking Spanish. My siblings from my mother's side, because both of my parents were pre-married before they hooked up with me and then my sister. So my siblings on my mother's side were all born in Puerto Rico. Okay. And 3 of them came and lived with us up in New York. So there was 5 of us in a 3-bedroom flat in Queens. Wow. For a stage. But
what is your birth name?
Martin.
Okay.
So my father's name is also Martin.
Okay.
And so in Spanish, you kind of, it's like an affectionate way. Martin Cito is like little Martin, and then Cito became my nickname.
And it just stuck.
And a lot of us don't really go by our real names.
Yeah.
So my sister, her real name is Obdulia, named after my mother, which is like a very ancient Spanish name. Yeah. I don't even hear it these days anymore. Yeah. But everybody calls her Ruby, and my mom Julie.
Okay. Yeah. And, naming. Yeah, it does work like that.
Yeah, and then it stuck, and then my friends would call me that, and then eventually it became what everybody knows me as.
Yeah. Okay, so we grew up formative years in New York. So do you have any full memories?
Yeah, I've got a few, but I obviously, growing up in the sort of 70s into the 80s, Superman, the first movie, I saw that at the AMC Theater in West 53rd, in Manhattan. I remember an organist playing like during intermission, because it was such a long movie, they would have to like change the film or whatever, and take a break or whatever. But I could be wrong. It could have been another
No,
movie.
but it doesn't matter.
But
It's
yeah, I
the
remember
memory,
seeing
which is
Superman,
cool.
which was pretty cool. And then when I moved to California briefly, E.T. came out. So that was the common thread for me, and I'm still a huge fan. Every time I hear John Williams' music, I just like my heart just melts.
Special.
Oh my god! Like, and he's still alive. He's
in his 90s.
Yeah.
He was nominated now for he was in the Oscars now for
cool.
for Last Crusade.
Oh wow!
Not
for
the Last
Indiana
Crusade, the latest
Jones.
Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
which I think we know to be his last score.
Okay.
I think he said that's going to be his last score.
But yeah, I mean, he's an empire. He obviously
he's been nominated for almost like a record amount of Oscars.
Yeah.
It's silly.
Yeah.
It's sort of it puts Meryl Streep in the dust. but it's so unmistakably him, which is incredible, right?
Yeah. No, he's a genius, and I remember going to the New York Library in Manhattan and borrowing tapes and records, because they would have like an audio section or whatever. And I would like listen to his music and then record it onto other cassettes and
to have your own copy.
To have my own copies or whatever. But
so
I would say Superman is like my earlier.
And he did the soundtrack for Superman as well. The theme.
Superman, all the Star Wars, the earlier Star Wars, obviously, E.T., Indiana Jones.
Just that magic. It's when you speak of magic, and when you like, if you walk around a place like Disneyland and how there's little speakers in the shrubbery, and it's just like they understand how to make it magical.
Yeah.
And his score just does the same thing. In the same way in which a person like Trent Reznor is, because he comes from the background of being in the band Nine Inch Nails, when he does David Fincher films, he knows exactly how to make you feel uneasy and weird. Where John Williams is like the sort of Santa Claus. It just makes it magical.
Yeah, big time. An audio wonderland for sure.
So you were locking into the music. So you were obviously enjoying
obviously the
cinema,
the story in the cinema.
But you were going, who's that? What is that?
Yeah.
How do I listen to it? How do I listen to it again?
Yeah. He really turned me on to. I mean, it's still a dream of mine to do a score and to get into that kind of realm of music making and composing and stuff. But he's so much a part of my music movie consuming experience.
Lovely.
Yeah, big time.
Okay, so that was the sort of early era. When did we then move from the States? You said you went back again when you were 7?
So then I moved to California, which is when, like in 82, 83, which is when I think they released E.T.
Okay.
And that soundtrack is also ridiculous.
We watched it recently when it got re-released for its, what is it? I do the maths is bad.
It must be like 40th
anniversary.
Yeah.
Timeless. We watched it in IMAX. Over onto high school now, which is what sort of, obviously the Americans do it slightly different. You've got your middle school and your high school.
Yeah.
But sort of 13 to 18, where were we mostly?
So I did junior high school still in Queens, Parsons Junior High. And then I moved to South Africa when I was 14.
Now, is that the first time you're now exposed to South Africa?
No. We came out here once or twice on like church missions.
Oh, interesting.
So my father organized this tour with our church in Queens, Jamaica, Queens, to go up to the Angolan border, going to Southwest Africa and joining up with the churches there and doing like a proper missionary kind of tour.
Angola,
like
border war was
during
around
Southwest Africa. So during the war,
that was a crazy war.
Yeah, it was a crazy.
So you
war.
went into the shit, so to speak.
Yeah, that was like from first time exposed to
in
South
primary
Africa.
school. You were.
Yeah,
that was your exposure.
I was like 10 when we came out and did that.
But it's not like you went to the leafy suburbs of, Parktown. You went to the Angolan border. Wild. Okay, then when you came for a little bit longer, did you start? So you then were in Joburg
So then I moved. So then we came out when I was 14. We immigrated
There was something a bit
immigrated
more permanent.
Yeah,
And where specifically were you?
and then it's Randburg. So we're the Randburg waterfront. I mean, we're
Yeah, it's changed again.
it's
But
changed
but
again.
at that point,
So that
the
was like our
waterfront,
first place that we. I mean, we first stayed at the Sands Hotel in Berea, just until we found a house, and it was very different to the way it is now.
Yes.
But I found myself there a couple of decades ago when it was like really dodge for dubious reasons,
Yeah.
and that was quite a.
I met a very interesting woman on a trip earlier this year. We were in Iceland on a. It was a very cool, intrepid group. So there was about 12 of us that spent about 5 days together traveling around Iceland.
Amazing.
And there was this older American woman, probably in her 50s, and her parents were South African, or they'd met in South Africa. And when she came for like a safari holiday, she wanted to check out some of the places that were important in her parents' life. So when they were in Johannesburg, she said to the driver, I've got this other place, Berea, and the guy's like, we're not going there. It's like, I'm not going to take you there.
Yeah.
And when she told me that story, as she said Berea, I was like, oh no.
Oh.
And she was like, that's what the taxi driver said. I was like, yeah, no, it's not going to be the memory that your parents might have had, but things change.
Yeah, I mean, Hillbrow and Berea were still okay when not okay, but you could see there was a bit of
Okay.
and it was pre-New South Africa. So anyway, so I struggled with my favorite sort of high school kind of film because
this is the high school crush.
Because I was like into movies like Goonies.
Yeah, cool.
Did I don't know if John Williams? No, he didn't do that.
Spielberg was involved. He was
Yeah.
like the producer on it or something. He
And
had
Cyndi
something-
Lauper was. I remember that she was part of the soundtrack and everything else. But yeah, so like Goonies was quite big, and then Lost Boys. I didn't watch Lost Boys, but what was that other one? Outsiders.
The Outsiders,
The
yeah.
Outsiders.
Outsiders was one of Tom Cruise's first roles.
Yeah, they had quite a cast. Like
Back when he still had sort of like weird buck teeth.
yeah.
He's since got more handsome since he changed his weird teeth.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Patrick Swayze, I think, was in it, and a whole bunch of cool guys, man. It was like
it's quite a cast.
quite a cast.
I watched it recently because I was like, this is a movie that it came up in one or two conversations I heard, and was like, no, you got to watch it.
Yeah,
And it was one of those like, it sort of rival gangs in a sort of neighborhood, and because something happened, this guy has to sort of banish himself, or they fight, and it's a little bit like West Side Story, where you're like, guys, there's such a bigger world out there. Like, do you really have to fight?
Yeah.
Why don't you just
But
go?
that was the 80s.
It was just one of those, like, the logic of it is like, do we really have to, is this life or death? Can we not just work this out, or, move on, or...
No, exactly.
But yeah, it was an important film. Okay.
But
so
but I would say the one that really, like, YouTube brought out Rattle and Hum. And and for me, that kind of, I know it's a music,
no, but it was
it was released on film
it was
to
released
cinemas
kind of
and
as a
everything,
film,
as a film, and the soundtrack. I was like, that's what got me into sort of world music, secular music.
Okay.
U2, and that film played a huge role in it.
Okay.
and
Just so I understand the term, when you say secular music,
like
that's
non-Christian
music that isn't Christian. So you obviously, did you feel quite bubbled in?
Well, it wasn't like, you can't listen to worldly music, but
Sure.
it was just what I was exposed to.
Exactly.
Obviously, radio, we could play stuff on radio, and I would hear like, Cyndi Lauper and, Madonna and whatever was happening then. But I wouldn't really I wouldn't have my own albums until, and I was listening to like Christian rock when I'm getting into my teenage years and stuff like that. And getting into music. And U2 is like my window drug band into secular music, and that's when I decided I wanted to become a musician. You know?
No, the Rattle and Hum film is great.
It's done so well.
What is the first? There's like, if you can remember, what was that first song that you hear?
It's Helter Skelter.
Yeah,
they did the Beatles Helter Skelter, or Charles Manson, and then the second one is Van Diemen's Land.
But I think it's the Helter Skelter that,
and also
when
that
someone-
that film and that album was banned in South Africa.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, because Bono takes a dig at the apartheid government and all that in one of the songs called Silver and Gold. So yeah, that would be like my high school film. That would be the one.
No, and
you know?
it's nice because we like to think of the High School Crush movie as being what a lot of the relationships were in high school, which is like you are experimenting, you are growing up and, you know, touching each other's bodies in new and exciting ways, and perhaps it's a little dangerous, or perhaps, you know, it's like it's pushing your own personal boundaries. So it's cool that that you were exposed to a new kind of music that wasn't just about Jesus.
and they were still kind of Christians, so I could still justify it.
There was good in the world,
to my parents and stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly Alice Cooper.
It wasn't like like I would see these Iron Maiden posters and go, oh my God, what the fuck? And then you hear the music, it's like, okay, it's not that bad.
Exactly. Iron Maiden was one of those bands that presented itself in such a particular way, but they were a band that never broke huge mainstream like a Metallica did.
Yeah.
You know, where we all know
On
Into
radio and
Sandman
stuff,
or Nothing Else Matters. And I remember even in varsity finding one or two guys that I knew were big fans, and I was like, sit me down, show me Iron Maiden. Like, here's your chance. What's my entry?
Yeah.
And he sort of played me a more slower song. I was like, this is softer than Bon Jovi. But like it presents itself with all these like mummies and
Eddie
things and
this
sort of weird skeleton character.
I never got into that Iron Maiden.
And then speaking of what we were talking about before, where you said it's, you know, you guys have this very eclectic mix of music. Once I then had someone else show me Iron Maiden, I was like, okay, I can see why they've never broken huge. They're very self-sustaining. They're a very successful band amongst the people that know them and love them.
Yeah.
But they never quite broke the mold because the music kind of sounds the same, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it being smart.
Yeah.
And it's about like history.
Yeah, it's like a cult band or whatever. Yeah.
But the lyrics are about wars and history and politics, and it's not just like.
Yeah, it's not just random.
It's not sort of Satan.
Motley Crue or something.
But they, if anything, they were let down, but also are famous for their branding.
Yeah,
it both let them down and kind of
made them. Yeah, they
made them
sold
who they
the
are
most
today.
merch than I can think of.
Yeah, but I remember a young kid walking into the bioscope wearing an Iron Maiden T-shirt, and I sort of said to her, "Do you know the band? Like, are you a fan?" or something. Or I said something about cool shirt, and we spoke about it. And then I realized that she'd bought it at Cotton On or something.
Yeah.
She doesn't know anything. And I was like, it's worth you finding out. Like, the singer is a pilot. Yeah. And the band's got its own plane, and he flies the plane around the world.
Yeah.
And I could see like her eyes grow, and I was like, and it's smart. It's about history and
big
wars and the politics of Britain, and like, it's interesting.
No, it is.
But anyways, okay, but you too. Cool.
Yeah. I became quite a U2. I was U2 before. I was like, just everything that they had done, I was just like completely obsessed. And then eventually, friends at school were like, you know, there's other bands besides U2, and then I got introduced to the more alternative bands, like Depeche Mode are still quite pop, but like Depeche Mode, and then Bauhaus and Joy Division, and you know all the darker stuff, and the rock, like all the. I got heavy obsessed with Doors, and Led Zeppelin, and it like those are the kind of bands that I kind of.
And where were you at school in Joburg?
So Roosevelt High School, and then Rampark High School. When I failed Standard 8, my dad was like, "Okay, we're going to do this my way." We live close to Rampark, so
you managed to fail Standard 8.
Yeah.
What was stopping you from passing Standard 8?
It was a combination of things. I just slackened. I just became obsessed with music and learning to play and
to the point where studying just didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, just
there was no point.
There was no point, exactly. And by the time I was in Rampark, I redid Standard 8 and then Standard 9. I was like, because I had then waxed Standard the second time around. I had waxed it.
yeah.
So math and science and all that I was rocking, and then and then I was like, I actually want to. I was checking my friends going to other schools, like colleges and stuff, so that to finish their matric. And I was like, I actually want to see if I can get into engineering and do like, get into sort of sound engineering and that kind of vibe and producing, and because I was so obsessed. And I convinced my dad to let me go to like in the middle of Standard 9, so I haven't even finished Standard 9. I convinced him to let me go to Joburg Tech, Doornfontein. It's the biggest mistake. It was like, I don't know why, I felt like I was in prison or something like that. It was just like very dead, and like there was no chicks. It was like there were girls doing like the mechanics course,
but they weren't the kind of women you want to hang out with.
Maybe, I don't know, not really. So I ended up bunking there as well with because I convinced my mate to join me on this, and we both made the mistake together, and we just bunked and hung out at Rocky Street and places like that. And I managed to get my N1, but didn't complete my degree or anything like that. So didn't get my matric, didn't pursue engineering or anything.
But I mean,
in that respect,
everybody's got their own path.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up doing photography for a living and doing printing and stuff like that. I worked at different printing shops and video spots eventually. But then I started gigging. About the age of 17, I started gigging sort of full time, playing bass in a soul band called Heart and Soul, and we did all the sort of retro R&B kind of.
Oh, nice! That must have been fun.
It was so cool, man. BVs and brass section, and we did the sort of Roxies, and the cover band circuits,
because this is now the next time, the next film in our list, which is It's Getting Serious, which is when you have left the sort of more formal schools, some with matric and some without, but you kind of left that, and now you're starting your career. Now you're building that up, and you also in your next wave of looking to discover new things. You're kind of more your own person now, and that and that's an interesting time. Okay, so
I hooked up with a girl who was in the band. She was about 9 years older than me.
Okay,
and I was 17.
In the soul band.
In the soul band, she was 26, and she showed me the ropes.
Literally and figuratively.
Pretty much. Like she was a big Led Zeppelin fan. So really got into Led Zeppelin, but she also introduced me to like Chet Baker and Dave Brubeck and Nina Simone, like really cool music.
Did she show you movies as well?
And movies, So the one movie which is still my favorite film of all time.
Okay.
I mean, having said that,
no, it can change, and
it can change. But so a big.
It's near the top of the pile.
Yeah, totally. Is David Lynch's Wild at Heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
Haven't seen it.
Oh my God.
No David Lynch. No, I've done
Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern.
I've done Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. I haven't seen The Dune. I haven't seen David Lynch's Dune.
I haven't either. I don't want to.
I don't even think David Lynch has seen it because he took his name off after so many cuts and compromises. Okay, Wild at Heart. Tell me about Wild at Heart.
Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern.
Okay, there's probably a whole bunch of people listening going, I can't believe you haven't fucking seen Wild at Heart.
You have to see it.
But this is what I love. We've actually got this night that we've done in the past at the Bioscope called You've Never Seen the Film, and then the name of the film. And if you bring someone who hasn't seen it but you've seen it, you get popcorn, free popcorn.
Oh, brilliant.
So and then that spirit, that same spirit has molded into what we're calling the Video Store Presents Night, which is us as the Video Store hosting a night at the Bioscope where we're presenting these kinds of films. So maybe we must do Wild at Heart.
Definitely.
Okay, then you must come.
I'm definitely going to do it.
And you can perhaps like share a little moment before saying why.
No, totally.
Okay, what made it special? We call it, what's the back of the box, which is like if you were to pick it up on the Video Store shelf, what would it say at the back?
It would say it's a Wizard of Oz story. I remember something like that with the synopsis somewhere. Basically, Nicolas Cage is Laura Dern's lover, and he gets sent to prison for killing a man that was going to try and kill him.
Okay.
It's a very intricate story.
Okay.
But basically, they're on the run. Him and his chick. He gets out of prison. He's on parole.
Okay.
And then he
skips parole.
And he breaks parole and skips parole, and they are getting chased around the country.
Okay. What makes it Wizard of Oz?
It's you'll see in the film. Like she has moments of like she doesn't want to be there, and she like clicks her heels together kind of vibe. Like
cool.
to send her back to Kansas or whatever, you know. But
have you seen The Fabelmans, which is
No.
the autobiographical film of Spielberg's childhood
No.
that Spielberg made recently? It was in the previous Oscars. It was nominated,
Oh wow.
and David Lynch has got a very special little cameo right at the end.
Oh cool.
Which, if you're not concentrating, you actually could miss that it's
Miss.
him, because he's in character. He's got this hat and this eye patch, but you'd appreciate it. Because I'm also here trying to find you something to watch. I think you'd
Cool.
appreciate The Fabelmans.
I think I will check it out for sure.
With a special mention of David Lynch,
Yeah.
who acts in it at the end.
So for me, it was like one of the first. You know, we had like shock movies, like Natural Born Killers, and obviously all the Tarantinos.
Because that's also
came in.
Characters on the Run.
Yeah. So like, what's that one with Christian Slater?
Yeah, True Romance.
True Romance. Like,
Yeah.
so it was like a predecessor to those kind of films. Like I think it was
Okay.
91 or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's just so many classic scenes.
And it's Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage, which is what he gives every role he's ever given.
No, fully.
He
and
never
and
half-asses
it's,
anything.
for me, it's his best movie. It really is. Like
Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart. You must check it. It's
Do you know that I have seen Nicolas Cage's grave? Do you know that you can go and visit Nicolas Cage's grave?
no.
It's the most bizarre thing in the world. He's a big fan of New Orleans,
Yeah.
and the big public cemeteries in New Orleans have got these mausoleums and these things above ground, because you can't bury people in New Orleans because there's too much water in the waterbed.
Yeah.
They noticed, and they heard these coffins sort of banging and floating, because they would float. They'd rise to the top and float.
Right.
So they're these above ground mausoleums, and they parcels of land that people can own. So like certain groups would like look after and give tours of the parts
Brilliant.
of the
I didn't
cemetery
know
that they
this.
can own, and it's, you know, there'd be one that'll be in great condition because they've got given the permission to look after it, and there'll be another one that's they can't touch because it's someone else's land.
Okay.
And so you can buy this section of the cemetery, and Nicolas Cage has bought his grave, and it's this obnoxious giant pyramid. But it's like, it's there and it's in his name, and it's going to be waiting for him when he croaks.
Crazy. That's crazy.
But when I said, "Are we going to be able to see Nicolas Cage's grave?" the tour guide like rolled her eyes, like, "Yeah, don't worry." Like,
Yeah. You won't miss it,
I hate
actually.
the fact that it's there, but you know it is
Yeah.
there. But it's cool. Okay, so Wild at Heart. All right.
It's got Willem Dafoe.
Oh,
It's got
he also never half-asses.
Nina Hagen. It's just star-studded, man. Like,
Okay,
and
but
really, really good.
what do you love about it?
So, soundtrack again.
Okay.
It's got the heavy eclectic soundtrack from Elvis. Nicolas
Okay.
Cage actually sings Elvis song as well. He sings.
Okay.
I think it's the name of the song is "I Love You."
Okay.
Treat me like a fool, treat me mean. And there's a scene where he
Yeah.
stops this fucking thrash metal band called Power Mad.
Yeah.
They're like, him and his babe are like rocking out live, and then this guy comes on to her and like he gets a bit too like whatever, and then Nicolas Cage stops the fucking band.
Yeah.
He's like, apologize to my babe, and the guy's like, fuck you, and like.
Yeah.
Anyway, he takes him out with a punch kind of vibe,
Yeah,
but then he sings to her. He serenades her in front of everybody. And then,
I can
and then
imagine how
everything's in
iconic
slow-mo.
that scene is.
Yeah, and then David Lynch, of course, he's just crazy. And these scenes are just you have to see it. It's
Okay.
one of those that
Because some of those David Lynch films, like narrative-wise and structure of the narrative, are designed to not make sense.
he can
where
be quite out
halfway
there.
through the movie something flips, and it's as if you're watching a whole new movie. It's very experimental in that sense.
Yeah.
But someone with a more mainstream sensibility could watch this and go, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Who's this now? What's this now?
Yeah.
Like, Lost Highway just flips on itself.
No, totally.
Um,
Dark
Mulholland Drive,
Mulholland Drive
makes almost no sense.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, I guess.
Yeah, it's art.
Okay,
which
it's
is
art,
which I really love about him. You know.
Yeah.
I'm a big Scorsese fan, so like
Yeah.
Taxi Driver and Mean Streets.
Yeah. Did you watch Killers of the Flower Moon?
I haven't yet.
Okay, it's a good 3 hours.
Yeah, he likes his long
But
movies.
it was perhaps a bit slow
yeah.
because the movie itself is a slow poisoning, literally.
That's what
and
it
so,
is, yeah.
So the movie kind of, it is good art, but it does feel like a slow
Is it
poisoning.
slower than The Irishman?
I haven't watched the whole of The Irishman
Okay.
for probably that reason.
All right. Yeah.
But when do we start the band? At this point.
So at this point, only a couple of years later. So I mean, I joined Martin and Wade's band, the Eight-Legged Groove Machine, in '94.
Cool name.
Very cool. I was in a gothic rock band, and we shared a gig at Tattoos in Ramburg, and we hooked up. Like we had lots in common. 6 months later, they needed a vocalist. I needed a band, and I joined them. And so we were Eight-Legged Groove Machine for a couple of years. Then we joined up with Danny's band Electric Pedals as the Electric Pedal Groove Machine. And then February '96, we became WONDERBoom.
Because Danny DeVette was the original drummer. Hey? Yeah. And then you became WONDERBoom.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's named after the suburb, right? The neighborhood.
It's actually...
Sorry to ask like the band question.
Yeah, no, it is. it is what it is, but not everybody knows this. We were coming back from tour Jan of '96 from Cape Town and up the N1, and there's a town just outside Kroonstad. So there's a sign that says WONDERBoom. And I was like, oh, WONDERBoom. And Martin was like, no, it's WONDERBoom. But then when you look around, it's like street names in certain areas. There's WONDERBoom in Pretoria, which everybody thinks we're from.
Okay.
But
it was more like, that's just a cool name.
It's just
which is
like,
which is how 90% of bands
names happen.
Do happen. But WONDERBoom is like is an interesting
and it's got
thing
so
to
many
have seen and
meanings, and it's bilingual, and it's whatever, you know. So sort of as our version of Supergrass, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So that's when we became WONDERBoom, and then many great films since then. But
what are some of those like all times? Because this is the last one, which is the film you would settle down with. And I think you've almost sort of said it at some point. You said your favorite of all time, but what do you think is the movie you can kind of keep coming back to?
When I saw Dune, the first one, Villeneuve, Dune, I thought it was so perfect.
Yeah.
That it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
And from reading a book and then seeing the film interpretation, that seldom happens. I mean, Lord of the Rings kind of does.
When did you read the book?
Because
for a lot of people, it was quite early on in their life.
Yeah,
they read it.
I only read it about 5 years ago.
Okay,
maybe 6 years ago.
I don't know how you could have read that book without having seen the movie, because that's the way I did it. I saw part one first, and then I was like, "This is cool. I want to read the book." It got really exciting when I got past part one, and I was like, "I'm now in my imagination. I can't wait for part two." Because for me, this has never really happened. I didn't read, Lord of the Rings. I didn't read Harry Potter. So, like, I've never really had that moment. Yeah. But for you, like, so that was a big one.
Yeah. I've read, because I've always wanted to read Dune. My wife is a big fantasy reader. And it was long before Villeneuve's movie was even said to happen. I was just like, just looking for new fantasy to read, because sometimes
I would love to see how it must have been in your head.
So in my head, that's what I was getting out of it, was that it was like, it's such a great book that, and it's very descriptive, obviously, but your imagination just like really goes there, and I really feel that the film like did it even more justice than my imagination did.
That's lovely. Have you seen part two yet?
No.
Okay.
I'm dying to see it.
It's great. I mean, it's on the same path. You know, it's obviously the same characters, but I mean, it's just as good. And what's interesting, it's almost got a different color palette. You'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Like even when you see the first poster of part 1, it's in blues.
Yes.
Because there's still the Caladan and there's still where the Atreides kind of came from, which was this, you know, more water-rich blue planet. And then now part 2, which is, you know, completely set on Arrakis, the poster, everything about it is orange.
Yeah.
And it's got a different color to it. But it's the exact same slickness, production design.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Watch it in cinema.
Hans Zimmer is just...
Well, it's not. I don't even think it's Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer not doing this one.
No, it probably does.
Because he did the first one.
Yeah.
I can't imagine him not.
No, I'm getting confused by the other bro, Ludwig van fucking someone. He's got a cool name. No, I think it's Zimmer. It has to be. Yeah. Sorry.
Cool.
But no, it's from an audio perspective, like it's a beautiful assault on you. Like it just rattles your chest.
That's great.
We watched it in IMAX, and so that's nice that this kind of newer film has come and given you like a real
I'm not
reshaping.
I'm not. It's weird because like I think movies date more so than music does in many ways.
No,
you know, like with technology and stuff like that. It has its downfalls when it does grow with innovation and technology. Like for me, there's something powerful about working within your medium, your parameters. Like when you're limited to certain film or whatever, you know, lighting, and it kind of adds to the character of the experience of your, you know, like Star Wars, great example. As soon as they started, you know, moving with the times, you know, with their digital, the CGI and everything else, it kind of just lost its character. It's lost its identity.
Yeah.
Where 4, 5, and 6 are like, because they worked within those parameters and the limitations, it added to the identity and the experience of it. You know?
A great example of what you're saying is the fact that they were having a lot of problems with the animatronic shark in Jaws. And so the original plan was to show the shark a lot more in the movie, but it wasn't working and things broke or something along those lines. And so what ended up happening is the shark had far less screen time.
Yeah.
But that actually made the movie
even better
because it was this, you know, this presence that you couldn't quite see. And then when you did see it, it was quite scary. Yeah. Because it just showed up very quickly. So working in your parameters. And funny enough, I did film school, and 5 years, I did a master's, like an honors. And you only sort of penetrate and remember one or two little nuggets. And the one nugget I had was know your parameters. And what this lecturer was saying was like, it was literally one of the last things she said to us at the end of our varsity career was, just know the limits of what you can do. Like if you can't afford a crane shot, then don't imagine it. Like tell it can you shoot it in another way? Know the limit of, as a director, what you can get from the actress who's in the water, because by take 2 she's going to start getting cold and you're not going to get the performance. So it's like, just know your limits and work, as you said, work within them. If you don't have a lot of budget, make a Napoleon Dynamite. You know what I mean?
Film, eh?
Where it's like, where like film. Own and play on the cheapness of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like you have that opportunity.
Yeah, totally. I'm a big fan of. I can't remember the name of the director who did. Have you ever seen Victoria? That one-shot film.
No.
I know that 1917 was also a one-shot.
The sort of the idea of it being a one-shot. Yeah.
So Victoria is it's a German film. It's crazy. I didn't know it was a one-shot film until after I watched it.
Funny, hey, because like going into 1917 as the film.
I also didn't know 1917 was a one-shot.
I knew it was that's what they were doing, where they were going to make it seem like it was one shot. Obviously, huge sequences were literally one shot, but then they cut it or masked it or tricked it in such a way that
Okay.
that's when certain cuts did happen, but they were kind of invisible.
Mm.
But to the person watching, it felt like it's this one
journey.
continuous
Okay.
shot. And knowing that, watching it, I loved it.
Yeah.
But then what was so great is that I remember my folks watched it and I said, and how cool is it that it's one shot? And they were like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I loved the fact that the movie could exist on its own without that, because
exactly.
otherwise it's a gimmick.
Because it's a great film. That's a
Okay.
great film. But Victoria, check it out. It's
Okay.
it's one of my best favorite directors as well is Wim Wenders. And long before City of Angels came out, he did a movie called Wings of Desire with also Bruno, what's his name? Bruno Ganz,
Okay.
which is basically City of Angels' story of he's an angel who falls in love with this
Yeah,
trapeze artist.
Okay.
And some amazing scenes in it. Peter Falk is also in it. Check that out. So that was like my kind of go-to favorite film between that and Wild at Heart.
Okay. There's a few Victorias. Which?
So it came out in 2016 or 2015.
There's a 2015 one.
2015.
Sebastian Schipper.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
one. That's a one-shot film. It's crazy.
Okay.
They had like from a car chase, a shootout with the police,
I can see the.
ending up in flats and all that. Yeah,
Are you on Letterboxd?
I'm not.
Okay, you'd appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
It's like it's an app just for movies.
Oh, cool. Please share that with me.
Yeah.
To
And
check it
so
out.
what I can see here is that Cole, who's a member of the video store, he's one of the guys who sort of works at our video store.
Yeah.
He's listed it as a film he wants to watch.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so maybe we must then do a watch party for it. Okay, and I'm going to add it now into my watch list.
Cool.
Yeah.
Must definitely check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Magic, man. And so, are we going to go on the road now? Are we going to tour the album?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
There's been a bit of a performance break for WONDERBoom since the second week of Jan
Okay.
till March the 30th, and then we're just going to be touring as much as possible.
Does that still excite you? The touring?
Totally.
I think we all love the shows once we're up on stage and the crowd is there, but
Yeah.
there is certainly a lot more that people don't see, which
Yeah.
takes a lot out of you, and
Yeah.
it separates you from your loved ones, and it's not the world's greatest life.
No, it's not.
But
It's
I mean,
very
is
tough.
that still something you want to do?
I do when I mean, I love touring. I love gigging. I like getting around. I totally get you with leaving.
But for you,
it's stressful having to leave
okay.
home. It's stressful having to leave home because we've got like lots of animals and pets and like so, and then leaving it
What
all
do you
to my
have?
wife. Leaving it all to my wife to like hold the fort. It's got to be a successful tour, in
Yeah.
that sense, we've got like 4 dogs and 6 cats and a parrot. It used to be worse than that, but yeah.
Okay. And you haven't had kids?
I've got kids.
You got kids.
I've got 2
Okay.
sons,
Okay.
2 different mothers.
Okay.
I'm not. My wife isn't. She's a stepmother,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, my kids are already fully grown men.
Okay.
My youngest is turning 23 next month,
Lovely.
and my eldest is turning 28 in September.
Okay, lovely.
So yeah.
Okay, so now, so no.
So with
no time
regards to
for
kids,
more kids now.
No, well, there's
Yeah.
enough people on this planet,
Yeah.
and we're quite happy just to enjoy our relationship and.
Yeah.
And animals are kids in many ways.
No, totally.
So,
No, very
so
much
yeah, so I enjoy touring. I love going out, especially when we have something new to present. When
Yeah.
it's not just, I really don't like just sitting on
the old stuff.
the old stuff,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be like, there's no point in that,
Yeah. All the stuff's probably listed on a website. All the tours.
Yeah,
All the
so
dates,
we're on
yeah.
Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter, and we've got a website, WONDERBoom.coza.
And all the shows are listed
All
there.
the shows are listed there. We're
Magic.
still confirming some. But yeah, we're going to Namibia. We're going to Mozambique. Going around the country.
Lovely. Where's your favorite? If I was like, we can go anywhere, where do you want to go? To play a show specifically.
Well, let's say as far as within our parameters. Strab. We're doing Strab
in Mozambique.
Mozambique, and my wife and I fell in love with that place so hard that we got married on that beach.
Oh, so really? Where the festival is?
Where the festival is. Yeah.
It is pretty.
It's just magic. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really special.
Well, let's go. Let's go back to Mozambique.
Yeah.
I've found you something to rent. You've actually found more for me, which is cool. That often does happen.
Cool. That's great.
But yeah, The Fablemans is something
I'm definitely
I
going
think
to check
you'd
it
really
out.
enjoy.
Is it on Netflix?
I think it's about time to come to streaming platforms. I'm not entirely sure where it is now.
All right.
But yeah, he very much Spielberg puts a lot of himself in it. It literally is the story of his childhood.
That's great.
There's a lot that he had to work out for himself. So a little bit like how we spoke earlier about how an album kind of works through a little bit of the psychology in your own life. Like he kind of had to make this. So he was sort of recreating some like really sensitive, quite dramatic moments in his childhood.
As a filmmaker,
he said it was the most expensive therapy session he ever had.
As a filmmaker, I can imagine that being like your demon, but also your number one priority of like really telling the story, as dark as it might be, or as
you felt like you sort of had to make it. Yeah. And you sort of sometimes you need to have however many other films under your belt before you can do that. So like for you guys, you needed to have made 10 to have made. Or 9 to have made this 10th that looks back. You know?
Yeah, big time.
But yeah, all the best for the album, man.
Thanks,
it's exciting
man.
to release. Someone early on the show, past episode, said, "Yeah, it's a release because you literally can get to release it."
Yeah, you let it go, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no more tweaking. There's no more changes. It's just like, this is who I am.
Yeah, and as you said, the music does live on and age better than movies sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, I just love the fact that these albums can be there for people forever.
Totally.
As long as you have them on the platforms, they're there, and they're there forever, which is great. So best of luck with Hard Mode.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for
listen to the whole thing. And
thanks for the chat.
Yeah, it was cool to learn more about you. I must say, I knew there was an American link, and I knew that there was a link. I didn't actually know it was as formative as your childhood. Yeah. So it was lovely to hear more about that.
So the area that I grew up in Queens is the same block of flats. As literally on the same road, but across the road, where they shot Liza Minnelli's scenes in Arthur.
Okay.
So if you've seen Arthur, surely Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli.
I haven't, but I do know of it.
Yeah, so where her character was living with her father in the flats in Queens is literally like a replica of what we were kind of living in.
Somewhere very close to where you grew up is the stairs that were now made famous from the Joker movie. It's in that world. It's like the Bronx or Queens. It's like one of those boroughs. Yeah. And what was just a normal set of stairs. And if you lived in this kind of, not necessarily the fanciest part of town, you are now just surrounded by tourists. And those neighborhoods, they were like, it's annoying now. Yeah. Of just people
and then the gentrifying and all that. It's just
the Joker stairs.
Exactly.
I took when we toured Amsterdam, I took Jake, the drummer, to go to the park bench that was used in the movie Fault in Our Stars, which was a little bit of like a young adult book, very dramatic. This is young kids with cancer, so it's like it's a very dramatic book that was turned into a very famous movie, very loved, very beloved.
Cool.
And just to show my partner at the time, like, I'm at the bench. And it's on Google Maps. You can go to like the bench.
That's amazing.
So yeah, lovely, man.
Cool.
But yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
You. I've always really like been a fan, but I've also been a fan of you specifically. That I've always said like, that's a rock star. Like just in your like style, approach, just like in your walk. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I've always just like appreciated your like what you put out.
Cool. Thank you very
I've
much.
always like appreciated your style and your output. So it is great to
Cool. Thank
chat
you.
more and also host you for these things. And
Yeah, I mean, like my passion for film translates more with my Blvd Hvnny videos,
yes,
where at least we get to,
yeah. And so Blvd Hvnny is the other band that you've
so
created, and
it's
that's
like we've
been a
become
more visual.
like visual. Like we do the scoring for the videos more than the other way
cool.
around.
Yeah.
It's I love what you're doing here. I love Bioscope. Also reminds me of mini cult cinema that was in Hillbrow.
Yes.
Well-
Mini Cine 1.
Yeah, where that's where I saw a song Remains the Same.
Okay.
That's where I saw Rattle and Hum. They also showed it there as well.
I'd love to talk to you more about that. We'll
Those cult
chat
films, yeah.
in a moment about it because that's a cinema that I've identified as being quite similar in spirit to the Bioscope.
Totally.
And it's weird, the first 10 years of our existence in Melbourne, nobody said anything about it. I didn't hear it as a name or term. And then weirdly enough, in the last few years, it's come up. I'm trying to find more flyers or posters or if the owners or if someone's around.
I'll
I'd
do
love
some
to-
snooping too. I'll check it
Please,
out,
I'd love to pull up and tell the story of this other cinema that existed in Hillbrow called Mini Cine 1.
Yeah,
So let's put it out to the universe here. If anybody knows anything, shout.
cool.
Because I think there's this kind of similarity with sort of twin flames or whatever the term is, just in different decades.
Totally.
So that's
Totally.
cool that we embody that for you.
Yeah, big time. That's
cool.
I definitely get a lot of that. And I hope to see all those other films we spoke about. It'd be cool to see them here.
Lovely.
Cool.
Cool, man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Keep well.
Cheers. All right. Lekker chat.
Right?
Lekker dude.
Love that dude.
Interesting life. I had no idea that he was not South African in that
No.
sense. Like, grew up in the States, Puerto Rican. Yeah. I mean, I'm loving this. I'm loving having these chats so that I get to learn about my friends and people I know.
Now, I always wondered where that accent came from. And now it
I knew
makes
he'd
sense.
spent time in the States and I knew he'd gone back many times, but I didn't know that it was kind of rooted in his childhood, which is cool. I, in a moment of hesitation, for some reason, seemed to think that Hans Zimmer wasn't involved in Dune Part 2, which is a big mistake on my part. In my head, I was like, isn't it another person? Who works with the Ludwig guy?
Ludwig Göransson.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's that?
You're probably mixing it up because he's done the last few Chris Nolan movies.
Yes.
So he
that's
did
it.
like Oppenheimer and Tenet and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so in my head it was like, no, we've moved on from Hans Zimmer,
Yes.
it's someone else. But I got it wrong. But of course, Hans Zimmer did the music for both Dunes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer, did he do like a Coachella or something a few years ago?
Yeah, how
Yeah.
fucking amazing
I
did
would
that
have
look?
loved to have gone to that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so Hans Zimmer, obviously famous music composer, done all the sort of modern themes that you know, like
Yeah.
Gladiator.
He did
and-
Black Hawk Down as well.
Black Hawk Down, Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
The Lion King.
So Richard,
Yeah.
my buddy Richard's been on a boat.
But
for
just
the-
one sec. So sorry. So he performed at Coachella like he was a rock star. There was like a full orchestra. Even the guitarist from Incubus was in his band
Okay.
for
That
that
live
performance.
band.
Yeah, and it looked amazing.
Danny Elfman did one a while ago as well, didn't he? A couple
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago.
He performed.
Yeah.
he
But he's a
performed
musician.
Coachella.
He was in a band called Oingo
Okay,
Boingo.
Boingo, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, you were saying?
So my buddy Richard's been on a boat for the last 6 months. He's been doing sound for all these shows, and he said
Okay.
so many people just play along to the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song. So they have that as a backtrack, and then they're just like sax or violin, and they solo along to that. He says he hears it like 3 times a day.
He's working on a cruise ship.
Well, he just got back.
Okay.
He did a 6-month contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard life.
Yeah.
The boats. It's a hard life. Steve Nkulo, who we did an episode with a while back, also said like it's hard. Eh?
Yeah.
Like after a while.
a little room. And Richard's a big dude. He's
Well,
like,
it's just you can't go anywhere. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just go for a walk in the park and clear your head.
Yes.
It's like you're kind of on a jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's a weird sort of cocktail infused jail that you're stuck on.
He did a nude cruise.
That makes some sense.
Well, one of them, he kept on changing, but one of them, of the stint he was on, like there were just naked people walking around, and
Here's the caveat.
Huh.
They're not attractive people.
Yes.
Like when you think like Europe, naked beach, like you think, oh, like this is going to be cool, and then the reality of it is horrible.
They're just regular people.
no,
but it looks
they're retirees.
They're retirees, and so like I remember seeing this or stumbling into this naked beach in Croatia, and it just looks like people are sort of like dripping down like like they're melting people, like everything is just sort of hanging to gravity,
bronzed and hanging.
Yeah, it's like we don't need any scientific experiment to prove gravity. Like it's there, it's in front of you. What are we enjoying at the moment? Should we maybe start with you, Graeme?
Yeah, sure. The final episode, I brought it up when it first started, and I said I'll bring it back up when the last episode airs, and the 9th and final episode of Masters of the Air came out this Friday.
Okay, so it is a limited series.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So much in the vein of Band of Brothers and the Pacific. If you think of these as like an anthology, this is basically the third one. So it's Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks producing.
And this is war.
Yeah, World War II.
World War II, and this is the planes.
This is about the bomber crews who were based in England and bombing the shit out of Germany.
And this is on Apple TV Plus.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It is a good show.
Okay.
It's not like, I said it last time I brought this up as well. Band of Brothers is the best thing ever made for television.
I think, I haven't seen Band of Brothers, but I can.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I know that it is.
Yeah.
Never saw it either.
So kind of like comparing it to that feels a little bit unfair, but in its own right, it is a very good show. It's really well paced.
Yeah, because I started it and it felt a bit slow.
Because at first it felt like, okay, feels like it's going to get repetitive.
Yeah.
Because they're flying out over Germany and then they're bombing it and they're getting shot at and it's scary, and then they come back and oh no, who's going to die? And they do that for a couple episodes and then they go, okay, they know that that's going to get repetitive, so they start like, changing up the formats of the episodes.
Okay.
And they like keep it alive. By the end, it's basically like a Prison Break show.
I was about to say, what is the ultimate kind of story?
Yeah, well, it follows much like Band of Brothers. It just follows these characters, the same characters through the war, like from the start to the end of the war.
Okay. And by Prison Break?
Well, they're POWs, so some of them crash land, end up getting shot down and crashed.
Okay.
In
so
Germany, and
prisoners
they're
of war.
and then they have to try and escape, basically. So it turns into one of those shows, and it's all based on true stories. It's all real people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Again, like Band of Brothers, it's all like researched, and these are all real people. It's based on a book as well, like Band of Brothers.
Okay.
The cast is great.
Yeah, I know old Elvis is in it.
Yeah,
Austin Butler.
Austin Butler's in it. Yeah, that's another thing about it. Initially, it's really overwhelming with how many characters are in it.
Mm.
And then you go, oh, wait, it's a war thing, so most of them die.
Yeah. Shit.
So it kind of whittles down to like probably 4 main characters.
Okay.
Austin Butler's great. I think he's really good in this. Callum Turner is like the other main lead. I only know him from those terrible Harry Potter spin-offs. He's in those, the Magical Animals movies.
Oh, Fantastic Beasts.
Yes. But he's good. But those movies are terrible, but he's great in this. Like, he's really good. But a dude named Anthony Boyle, who I've never seen in anything, he's really good in this. He's also like one of I'd say there's like probably 3 main leads.
Okay.
Yeah. Cast is great. It's really well paced. It's super well made.
All right.
Like, very good show. Good music.
One of the top 5 coolest things I've ever done in my life was scuba dive through a World War II wreck.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's called the Thistlegorn. It's in the Red Sea.
That a ship?
It was a ship. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a Allied ship that got bombed. It was heading to help the war in North Africa.
Mm.
And it was so big that when it got bombed, it broke in half. And the 2 halves fell to the bed. So you can swim into the middle and then go through the cabins and see these like motorbikes and trucks and motorbikes on the back of trucks and locomotive carriages that sort of fall into the sides. And it was like, it's the closest you get to seeing like actual World War II preserved.
Yes.
It was single-handedly one of the coolest things I've done.
What's the depth of the Red Sea? It's not... It's a sea. It's
so
not too bad.
we had qualified to be an advanced diver, which is more than it's about 40 meters.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like wildly deep,
Yeah.
but yeah, your normal qualification I think is like sort of 11, 15, maybe 20, and then this advanced certification takes you to about 40.
Oh, that's
Okay.
Yeah, it was fucking rad.
That's cool. That's super cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you
definitely
were you-
recommend that.
Were you one of those kids that grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot?
Not really. Seems a bit scary.
I think that we're all perhaps a bit too young
Yeah.
to have been succumbed by Top Gun.
Yes.
I think if you were about 16 when Top Gun came out, then you would probably think your life's wasted if
Yes.
you weren't a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Well, that was an advert for the army.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
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 It's propaganda.
Yeah.
It is.
Safe to say.
Yeah, but I definitely recommend it. Another thing I'm going to watch, I haven't started it yet, but a new thing, starring the dude I just mentioned, Anthony Boyle, a new show on Apple TV called Manhunt, looks pretty cool. It's about the hunt for John Wilkes Booth, who's the
guy
guy
shot
who...
Lincoln.
Yeah. So it's about like them...
JFK?
No,
Lincoln.
John Wilkes Booth assassinated
Oh,
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Okay. That was
So
okay. So
it's-
in the Ford Theatre,
Yes.
John Wilkes Booth was an actor. There's
Yes.
great stories behind that. I've been to Ford Theatre.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in DC, we made a point to go to Ford Theatre,
Right.
which is now just a memorial. It's a fully sort of operational theatre, but of course they don't do any theatre in
Okay.
it. And you could see the booth where he sat, where
Right.
Lincoln was, and then he got rushed because he didn't die then and
Yeah.
there, and he got rushed across the street.
Right.
And so part of your ticket also includes going across the street to see where he then sort
Okay.
of spent the last few hours of the night.
Mm.
We went from theatre to theatre.
Yeah. Well, no, he never actually made it to the hospital. I
Yeah.
don't think he died in this bed across the street.
Mm.
But there's a lot about John Wilkes Booth. Yeah. There's a lot about because he was actually quite famous,
Mm.
which a lot of people don't know in
Yes.
history.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was quite a well-known actor. But
Yeah.
he was like indoctrinated, a bit brainwashed
Right.
to sort of believe that he needed to do that. So he had that access
Mm.
to be able to get into the theater, to be able to have a gun in the theater.
Yes.
He was also a male model.
Oh.
No. Isn't that in Zoolander?
Oh, really? I don't
Didn't they
remember.
make the joke about John Wilkes Booth being a male model? Oh no, it was I think it was a nod to the JFK assassination. It cuts to the guy on the mound, and he's this like handsome man. They're all those political assassinations were carried out by male models.
Right.
Okay, that sounds cool. Manhunt.
Yeah. Also on Apple TV.
Then it was a super famous manhunt
Yeah.
for him.
Is the whole series out, all episodes?
I don't know, actually. Apple TV doesn't usually do that. They usually do it week by week.
yeah.
Okay, Apple TV, I must say,
Yeah,
Like-
2 episodes are out.
Okay.
Apple
They've got a high standard.
Apple TV is really great.
Yeah.
Like, what's it per capita?
Mm.
Like, there's a smaller amount of shows, but the quality is so great.
Yeah.
Just even based on the small amount of shows that they have
Yeah.
in relation to like a Netflix, which is gargantuan.
Just churn them out.
Yeah. So speaking of Netflix, I've really been enjoying The Gentleman,
Cool.
which is Guy Ritchie's TV show spin-off from the movie. I watched a little bit of the movie,
Okay.
I like
but I
the
never
movie.
finished the movie. Did you watch the whole movie?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think one needs to know the movie. I think the spin-off, the TV show stands on its own.
Does it continue from the movie, or was it?
I couldn't tell you. I haven't
Oh,
seen the
okay.
movie, but like
Yeah.
I can tell you that I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
Yeah, they don't normally make you feel obligated to.
I'm keen to
To
perhaps
catch
watch
up.
the movie to see how perhaps it might fit in, but I think it's just, I'm loving the show.
Cool.
It's very Guy Ritchie, because I think there was a period where he sort of established himself, obviously, as what was unmistakably Guy Ritchie with
Yes.
Lock, Stock,
Then
and
he made
Snatch.
Then he made Aladdin.
Yeah,
it's
then
still
he
hard
sort of,
for me to believe he did
then he
that.
went and became the superstar director and was making movies like Arthur and and as you said, Aladdin and all these other
Swept
things.
away with his wife at the time.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
haven't seen that.
No, don't.
But yeah, then he sort of lost his kind of British, that sort of real quirky, like Cockney charm.
Yeah, he was making studio movies for a while.
Yeah, and then that's cool. Like, go
Yeah.
for it. Like, if they were really good, then I think we would
Yeah.
all be happy for him.
But they don't like have his stamp on it. Like Aladdin doesn't feel like a Guy Ritchie movie at all.
Yeah, and but the argument is like it doesn't necessarily have to, but it must be good.
Yeah.
And they weren't necessarily good,
Yeah.
and so perhaps the argument is you really are a good director when you're in a lane that's comfortable for you, that's right for you. And what he said often about movies like Snatch is that all those characters and that language and all that writing kind of wrote itself, because that's what he was hearing in bars. That's what he was hearing around him. These were the way
Right.
these characters spoke.
Yes.
So he wrote from a very true place.
Right.
And so now what's cool is the gentleman really at the crux of the story is about a guy who's born into some level of royalty. His dad is a duke, and right at the start of the show, his dad dies. He gets called back to the manor and finds out that he's been given the title of duke, even though he's the second born. His older brother seems to be a real fuck up, and so in this kind of point of controversy, he's now been made the duke.
Right.
And his brother's gotten himself into all this trouble. He discovers what's happening on his land. I don't think I'm giving too much away, but
Yeah.
there's this drug operation that's happening underneath the dairy farm.
Okay.
And so our main character, who seems rather straight-laced, he comes from a history of working for the British Army, so he is kind of well-trained, well-versed, is now thrown into this sort of world of gangsterism and has to do favors, and sort of things get complicated. And I think if you find the first 2 episodes frustrating, because this brother is such a fuck up, and he has to constantly like get him out of trouble, and you think, is this what this whole show is going to be like?
Right.
Don't worry, that part calms down.
Okay.
But of course, the show just keeps getting complicated as he gets more and more put in the world. But
Right.
the characters are these lovely, strong, real Guy Ritchie characters. And what I mean by that is that they hold court.
Right.
So when you meet them, even if it's just a guy who washes the money, or a guy who, is the lead gangster in this gang, or the dad, or they're these such strong characters that when they start talking, you just listen because they speak with this confidence, this sort of like big dick energy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
like they just keep you, and so it's such a charming show.
Cool.
And in that regard, you as the audience member just want to keep watching.
Okay, that's good.
And it's I always just find this interesting because Gad actually raised it once that's the Netflix measure. It's not how many people
Start a
show.
Yeah.
It's how many people end a show.
Yep.
And because these characters just keep you captivated when they speak, because they speak in such a particular way, you're forced to just keep watching.
Right.
So
That's cool.
I'm enjoying the fact that I'm continuing it.
Yeah.
Is Richie just a producer, or does he?
Yeah,
Did he
it
direct
seems
any?
like it seems like the episodes are directed by different directors, but it's created by Guy Ritchie.
I looked. He
Okay.
did the first 2 episodes.
He
I
did the
looked it
first
up,
2.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
He also has a movie out this year. The dude's busy.
Yeah, the movie looks really
Yeah.
cool, and I'm not seeing it on the release schedule,
Okay.
which is a little disarming. So what I'm privy to is seeing this schedule of what all the distributors in South Africa are going to release. And so I can see them coming, and I can obviously approach them if I want that movie for the Bioscope. And his movie is called
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
It looks amazing.
Yeah,
and
looks
so
rad.
hopefully it's going to come. Hopefully, I would imagine it'll come to South Africa, and
Yeah, no, definitely
and
will.
you guys will be probably the first to hear about it. Speaking of this schedule and
Yeah.
what we can announce and what we can talk about, there's 2 things I'd love to talk about.
Cool.
The first is The Boy and the Heron.
It's exciting to see that.
I had to sort of keep a bit quiet in the previous episode, and I was
Yes.
like, I'm pretty sure it's coming. I don't know what, because I don't know what I could say or announce, but tickets are on sale for the screenings at the Bioscope. It's
Oh
going
my
to
goodness.
start, believe it's that Friday, the 19th of April. So
Okay, cool.
it's Almost a month away, yeah. This is the Academy Award-winning animation. Miyazaki, who's the godfather of Japanese animation, brought you all the films you've loved, like Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, and his latest film, The Boy and the Heron, is going to be screening at the Bioscope.
Amazing.
That's going to be a goodie.
The other one I'd love to mention now is Monkey Man.
Yes.
Do you know about Monkey Man, Gad?
I don't know about Monkey Man.
Okay, yeah, and so a lot of these films that are the smaller releases could get a bit lost because they're not these huge tent poles. But Monkey Man got our attention. I think Graeme was like, have you seen this trailer? It's completely bonkers. Then the Bioscope, as I said, has upgraded and has been able to screen these kinds of movies now. And I'm excited to screen a movie like Monkey Man. So what it is it's Dev Patel, who we know from Slumdog Millionaire, Lion, perhaps a bit more serious, dramatic actor. This is his directorial debut. And he's made this almost like this John Wick looking action movie, but set in India.
Ooh.
So I think something happens to his family and he's looking for vengeance, but he takes on this character, which is in kind of Indian Hindu folklore, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Where he does these like underground fighting, this underground like sort of cage fighting to, I think, help support his family, I think, but now he's kind of using his skill to work his way up this cartel. So it could be dismissed as a John Wicky beekeeper fucking action romp, but I believe it has more substance to it.
Yeah.
I believe it's got more heart. Obviously, we haven't had a chance to watch this movie yet, but critical acclaim is coming through. Jordan Peele is an executive producer, so it's got something else to it.
Yeah, it's getting very well reviewed. Like, they're starting to do early screenings, and
this morning I saw
impressions are very good.
Yeah, I saw a standing ovation this morning, and Dev Patel gets emotional from the standing ovation, and he turns his back to the audience to sort of wipe away his tears. I think it's got, I believe it's got this incredible heart to it. So the first Friday in April is when it's being screened in cinemas. And
is he in it as well?
He's in it. So he's the main guy, and I don't think he's got a name. I think he's just called Kid.
Okay.
Movie's going to be good when the main character doesn't have a name.
Yeah, right? So I think it's going to be a good, fucking get them action vengeance movie, which, is revenge is a very underrated emotion. But hopefully a lot more to it. And I think what I'm getting at here is that the big challenge for me when it comes to these kinds of movies is figuring out whether or not it's a Bioscope movie or not.
Right.
And it's quite hard to articulate exactly what a Bioscope movie is, but I believe this is. It's almost like I know what it's not.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of I know what it's not, myself, Graeme, and Cole went to go watch Arthur the King.
Oh, yes.
Which is a very delightful, charming, heartwarming story about runners in a sort of adventure racing world championship based on a true story. It stars Mark Wahlberg as the lead character, and they pick up this stray dog in the Dominican Republic while they're running through the jungles.
Yeah.
And it's this heartwarming story of this group of runners and a dog. But just to close off on what I was saying is that I thought this could potentially be a Bioscope movie.
Okay.
It's a charming movie. It's going to work perfectly for a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
Sunday night streaming.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a soppier movie in that regard. And so then I left that going, okay, it's not a Bioscope movie. Because I thought maybe it could be.
Yes.
In its kind of charming way, because we have a night at the Bioscope called Ugly Cry Night. We could maybe do maybe it's still got one or two screenings in it for a sort of dog charity raising thing or something.
Yeah.
But it was perhaps just a bit cheesy.
Schmaltzy.
Schmaltzy is a good way to describe it. But it's great. If you want a good, happy cry, Arthur the King is in cinemas at the moment. It could be a good little date movie, maybe. If you're a runner, you could enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it was a bit cheesy. There was moments where I predicted almost with my finger as I predicted what characters might enter the frame at certain times. I don't know whether that annoys you, Graeme.
No.
Doesn't it?
Because I'm usually thinking the same thing.
Okay, yeah. There was this one scene where you think the dog's left them, Gad. They've had to go into this sort of canoeing part of this race, and they've had to leave the dog behind. And then there's a shot that's composed in such a way where they're swimming next to an embankment, and it's tracking along, and you know the dog is just going to enter the frame and reveal the fact that he's still with them. He's running alongside them. And I sort of did it with my finger. I was like, and I sort of stroked my finger across, and there the dog sort of enters the frame. I think I can only do that with a guy like Graeme.
Yeah.
I think if I did that with like a date, it would piss them off.
Like, we get it.
And then at one point, the dog is chugging water, and
Oh my lord! Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
and then you see the dog sort of about to drown. Just his nose is left in the water, and then Mark Wahlberg sort of reaches in to get the dog. But there's just this one shot of the dog's face underwater where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
we didn't need to
We
see
didn't need
that.
that.
Like, it just made it a bit too like, oh,
On the nose.
literally on the nose. Yeah. No, but Arthur the King is great. It's I wouldn't stake my
I think it's a
cinematic
good
reputation on
story.
it. Yeah.
It's not necessarily a good movie,
Yeah.
but it's a good story.
And
And
it-
it does have a cute dog in it,
Of course.
with some good dog acting.
I was in tears just watching the trailer, so I don't know
Yeah,
how I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah.
handle this movie.
And at the end, and I'm not giving too much away, but at the end, like, you'll see the real dog. And
Yes.
it's like, that'll make you cry.
Aw.
What are you watching, Caddy?
So there are a couple of things. Second season of Sweet Home is out on Netflix, which is the South Korean horror series.
Okay.
Sweet Home.
Sweet Home.
They always got really interesting names.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a
a weird
strange
translation.
translation. But it started off as what could have been like a zombie show. But instead of becoming zombies, these people become like monsters. They refer to them as monsters.
Okay, but they are like zombies.
They're kind of like zombies, but it's like beyond. It's like these crazy creatures, and like their arms kind of become like spears. So certain people have these capabilities of becoming these super monsters
Okay.
who can transform back and forth between humans and monsters.
Okay.
And the government's like trying to find them and test them so they can kind of find the cure.
It's almost like a mutant thing.
Like a mutant thing, yeah.
Okay.
Like X-Men. It's like the sort of world of X-Men where some people have this thing and some people don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the government have obviously like tried to take over, and now in the second season, the first season was set in this apartment building, and they've kind of now moved into this like an arena, like a baseball field or a stadium almost.
Is it quite post-apocalyptic, like the world's abandoned these buildings, or is it still functioning society?
Yeah, there's like no functioning society whatsoever.
Okay.
So yeah, they've kind of now there's a civilization of people in this stadium, and they need to like get out and get supplies, and the relationships between the characters are crazy because it's South Korean. It's not the way they talk to each other, and it's not what we used to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, and
I
special effects are like mind blowing.
Mm.
Like they
Yeah.
just make everything else on TV look silly.
Yeah. I love those moments when you realize what a different culture and a different set of beliefs, how that can change your dialogue, and how that can change the way you see the world. Like, I brought that up with Past Lives, which was that lovely South Korean, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's effectively a South Korean movie. Half in America, half in her sort of early childhood in Korea. But just by the fact that they are a people who believe in reincarnation,
Yeah.
the narrative of a love story is different because you're speaking of different lives and in this life and how we are different people, and like I love that. I love seeing it. So what makes Sweet Home great?
It's just these characters are amazing. Like they're just the way they're holding on to life, this life that they can't really ever
Are the
get back to.
Are the main characters the mutants or not? Some are.
Some are, yeah. So the one main protagonist is just this little nerdy kind of guy who's in the apartment, and then he becomes a super monster and finds like this other super monster. Then the government take them and they're doing experiments on them. He lets them kind of take him to be this martyr to try and save humanity and find the cure.
Okay, who are the bad guys?
The government.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's not that the mutants are necessarily bad.
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And
okay,
then
Sweet Home.
Sweet Home, yeah.
On Netflix.
On Netflix.
Okay, so you watched season 1.
I've watched season 1 and then season 2. I think
2.
I've got 2 more episodes left to go.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one other thing, I'm watching the final season of Star Wars The Bad Batch, which is...
Yeah, you love your Star Wars stuff.
I love my Star Wars. So this is kind of like a continuation of the Clone Wars. The clones were obviously created to fight against the droids in the prequels. But then they were doing experiments to try and improve on the kind of formula of the clones. So this is a group of 4 people. One was like really strong, one is really good aim, one's good at tracking, and one's like really smart, and they're the Bad Batch. And
is it animated?
It's like animated, yeah.
In the style of Clone Wars?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the final season of the Bad Batch, and what I find amazing about these cartoon shows is while the movies have these like huge holes and glaring problems,
yeah,
they're trying to kind of fill in the gaps with the animation.
Right.
So like Clone Wars for me made the prequel movies a lot better because it filled in the gaps. And so now what this is doing is it's starting to tie in with the TV shows like Mandalorian, which talk about cloning, and because the biggest drop thing that happened in the new movies was that Palpatine returned.
Yes.
And you're like, how did that happen? And now they like backtracking and like they're explaining how the cloning thing was set up, and Bad Batch is tying all of these things together.
Okay. So it's kind of saving the Star Wars story in many ways.
Yeah. Which it needs to be done.
Interesting. Yeah. It to me it feels like too many meals that I can't personally take on myself. I'm not that big a Star Wars fan, but I like the fact that there's lots for you that kind of enrich the story. That's kind of how I felt by reading the Dune book.
Right.
You know, it just gives you that bigger story. Reading the Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood book.
Right.
Also just gives you so much more context and sort of world building that it makes the movies more enriched.
I can't get enough. The Acolyte's coming in a few months.
Okay.
What's that?
So that's a Star Wars show set, I think it's like 100 years before episode 1.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus.
So that's going to be quite intense, like a drama.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Lovely. I think we should lock up and go home. I think we've had ourselves a lovely day here.
I think so.
Just
too.
lovely.
Just
hey?
lovely.
Once again, if you've made it this far, Hard Mode, the new album from WONDERBoom, will be available for you to enjoy from Friday in the week that this episode was released. And then, of course, links to all the stuff we chatted about is in the description. And we hope to see you again next week.
Yeah.
All right. Our main home base is thevideostore.co.za. Please chime in on all the social media. We'd love to hear from you on Instagram, especially if we've got any part of this wrong. We like a good fact check. And also just thoughts, especially on the Facebook group. Please give a post to what you're watching, what you're enjoying, stuff you think we should be talking about. And we'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Check you later.
Cheers.